Awakening Your Everyday Wisdom. Video number 2, Truth. A lot of people think that mathematics are true. You know, there are some definite truths about mathematics, like 1 + 1 = 2. You don't find very many people arguing with that one. And there are a whole lot of things that people don't argue with. But then, a very famous mathematician, Kurt Gödel, apparently stated, and I think this was in his book. I actually tried to find it, and it's way too dense for me. But I came across it at one point, and now I can't find it again. But he apparently stated that a complete and consistent set of axioms for all mathematics is impossible. So I said, gosh, if even the mathematics can't align on an absolute truth, who can we turn to? Yeah. All right. So let's look at some distinctions on truth. Empirical truth, subjective truth, and objective. Empirical truth is that which we individually experience directly through our 5 senses and our emotions. A lot of us think that that's also objective, but it's not. So with subjective truth, that's what we conceive through our intellect and our empirical truth. So that's a combination of those two. Objective truth is true for everyone at all times, under all conditions, and can be proven with a variety of tests that produce the same results every time. Wow, do we have very much of that in our world? Whew, I don't know if we do have very much objective reality. But let's go on. We'll start with something very basic, the origin of human life. What's true? Well, Western science has us pretty convinced that humans evolved from lower primates. The Old Testament tells us that God created man and woman and everything else. And in a Gallup Poll, 2014, 4 in 10 respondents believe that God created Earth around 10,000 years ago. I've heard this number several times, different documentaries and so forth. But I've also watched some documentaries where science tells us that the Earth is 4.543 billion years old. There's a pretty big gap between those two numbers. Our problem is deciding what to believe. So I've also come across the Bible indicating that mankind has been around 5,000 or 6,000 years. And I've seen this in documentaries too. But then they dig up these old bones and so forth and carbon date them, and anatomically modern humans, that means they could trace these bones right back to the way we are today. The Homo remains, I got some facts for you, in Ethiopia are from the Middle Paleolithic era, approximately 200,000 years ago. Another really big gap, 5,000, 200,000. What are we supposed to believe? Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma we all face. Unless you don't really care about the origin of human life, then it doesn't matter to you, which is fine too. So then there's this other concept I came across called, I gotta get this right, panspermia. So what that means is life exists all throughout the universe. And it is distributed by space dust, meteorites, comets, asteroids, etc. That's a whole theory. That's very different from creation or evolution. So now we have 3 that we need to ponder. But like I say, maybe what matters most is what we do with this life that we're living right now, and not be too concerned about how we got here. That's kind of where I am, actually. So let's look at truth again. One time I was talking to my brother, and this was back when I was kind of confused about different things. And I said to my brother Robert, how do we know when we found the truth? And he's a very pragmatic guy. And he said, well, when you stop looking for it. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm still looking for truth, so that must mean I haven't found it yet. Some aspects of truth I feel like I can put a stake in the ground on, but not a whole lot actually. So if you're comfortable with ambiguity and paradox in life, maybe the access to your everyday wisdom is to focus on the things that matter most to you. And don't get all hung up on too many questions that really don't apply to you or your mission in this life. That would be my recommendation. I have a couple other suggestions. So I've got 7 of them here. I'll read them off and maybe make a few comments as I go. My first suggestion, as you're looking around trying to decide what's true for you, especially if any of the truths that you were taught when you were 5 years old, or things you learned in high school or college, or when you got out in the real world, you might have had some rude awakenings as to what was true. So if all of those things are still kind of rumbling around in your mind and you're trying to sort them out, my recommendation is to question and observe everything. Discover what offers logical, mathematical, and scientific proof, possibly leading you to objective truth. Also examine your spiritual beliefs. Sometimes we accept things and we don't even know why we've accepted them. I'll give you an example. When I was probably first grade or so, I used to seriously believe that the devil was an alligator because I couldn't think of a worse creation in the world than an alligator. I was terrified of alligators. I lived in Florida. Well, today I don't believe that the devil is an alligator, okay? But if I still did, I would have to question that. And there were a whole bunch of other things that I accepted as true when I was young, college and so forth, that I no longer accept today. They just, no, that doesn't make a bit of sense to me. And so I discard it. I recommend that we do that. We sort through what we believe and why. Also, examine your current thoughts. What is going through your mind? Because there's got to be a lot, if you're paying attention even 20% of the time to what's going on around you, it's got to bring up a lot of questions. So examine those questions and kind of follow them to some sort of a conclusion so they don't just have to keep swirling and swirling in your head. And be careful. We humans can deceive each other so easily. I really think that we need to choose who we listen to. So when we're examining the sources of truth, and we also want to recognize some things might be safe to believe, some things might not. In your own culture, you might not even be able to speak your own truth for fear of ostracization or rejection. So that's something to consider. Is the truth that you're recognizing more important than your social acceptance? That's a big balance for most of us. Trust yourself. Trust your intuition. Trust your everyday wisdom. You've got it, and it will lead you to your subjective truth. It may not lead you to objective truth. You're not going to find it, I'm sorry to tell you. So quit. Just align on your subjective truth. What's true for you? Live your life according to what's true for you. Don't violate your own principles, your own values, your own truth. Stick to it. That's what I say. Meditate and pray. I personally think that's the best way to listen to higher guidance, to your Creator, to divine truth, to your internal knowing, your everyday wisdom. If you don't take time to quiet yourself, listen, it's kind of hard to hear the truth. I don't think you're going to find it on the news. You're going to find it inside of you from your own sources, from your own Creator, your own divine inspiration. And then going back to the body, notice what feels right. If something doesn't feel right to you, it probably isn't. So don't try to violate your body's messages. If you get the heebie-jeebies over something, pay attention. That's your guidance system. So anyhow, enough preaching or teaching, whatever you want to call it. Those are just my suggestions. In closing, all of us have wisdom. We can all discern truth for ourselves. To understand absolute truth, we would have to have infinite minds. But we don't. We have finite minds. So let's stick to the finite. Let's stick to our subjective truth, not worry if other people believe it or not, and move on. We can have happier, healthier lives that way. So may your truth be self-evident. Thank you for participating in this video. If you liked this video and found it useful, please click the like button. And if you would like to be involved in future videos that I'm producing, please click the subscribe button. And if you have friends or family that you think might benefit from the video, I'd love it if you'd share it. Thank you. If you'd like to access the self-assessments and handouts on my website, please visit www.still-waters.net and go to the resources tab, and there you will find the self-assessments and the handouts and also the references for the various videos. I'd love your feedback. I have a blog on my website. I'd love to hear what you think, what your experiences are. And even if you have contrary ideas to what I've presented, I'm open. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. We're all in this together, and I'm a fellow traveler. Peace.